Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, good evening to you. I'm General Rick Hillier, retired General Rick Hillier, and welcome to Shots with Soldiers. For those who have been with us before, you understand what Shots with Soldiers are. For those who may watch this a little later, Shots with Soldiers really just comes from history and soldiering. All through history, as soldiers went into combat, went to war, they were often sort of given some kind of courage, given a warming of their belly, given that little shot of fire to get them reared up and ready to go and take the kind of risk that they were going to take by giving them some alcohol, or they got alcohol themselves. It goes way back in history, 1,000 years at least, into the shield walls in ancient Britain, into the Roman legions. And we know it most and probably best from World War I, when soldiers in the trenches on the Western Front in northern France and Belgium, before they went over the top, often at dawn, when it was coldest and darkest and most despairing, they would be given a shot of rum or whiskey or wine or whatever was available, often rum, to drink before they went over the top. And as always in history, some soldiers probably didn't take those shots, which meant that other soldiers had multiple shots before they went over the top. So it wouldn't be unheard of in our history that soldiers went over the top, perhaps a little tiny bit inebriated from time to time to time, but they went over the top and they did their job. So welcome to Shots with Soldiers. We've changed it slightly to say that what we do is talk about a specific soldier, a hero of our nation, and we toast that soldier with a shot at the end. And your shot can be anything that you choose to drink. It certainly does not have to be alcoholic. What we want to do is to salute somebody who has served Canada. And for the first time, since we've been doing these Shots with Soldiers now over 2 years, we have the soldier here tonight that we're going to talk about and that we're going to salute and that we're going to toast at the end of this next few moments here. And that soldier is on your screen here, is Trevor Green. Trevor Green, let me just tell you, is one of my personal heroes. Trevor was born in Nova Scotia, a great maritimer, 1965. Graduated from King's College. For just a minute now, 1965. That makes this boyish looking, incredible guy right there 57 years old. Oh my goodness, how time goes by. And during that time, during that 57 years, he served our nation in a whole variety of roles. He's been a teacher, he's been an author, and he's worked in a variety of areas and domains. He's worked in Japan, he's worked across Canada. He joined the Navy in 1995 and then subsequently left the Navy and joined the Army Reserve. He joined the Seaforth Islanders of Canada, based in Vancouver. Now, for those of you who have been following our Shots with Soldiers from the past, the Seaforth Islanders of Canada produce heroes, not just Trevor Green, but they also produce, for example, one guy called Smokey Smith, who won the Victoria Cross because of his valor in the presence of the enemy in Italy in 1944. And we've toasted Smokey Smith as the incredible hero of our nation on Shots with Soldiers before. Tonight, we toast another member of the Seaforth Islanders of Canada, a proud Canadian regiment, Trevor Green. Trevor deployed to Afghanistan in early winter of 2006 with the battle group based on the Patricias, led by Lieutenant Colonel Ian Hope, another incredible Canadian. And Trevor deployed as a civil and military affairs officer. His job really was to try and pull together all the threads of the resources available, of the energy available, of the dollars available to help the Afghans in Kandahar province to actually build their country back, build their province back, and build their communities back, whether that was getting fresh water, drinkable or potable water, or whether that was getting a school built for little girls. So for the first time in their generation, in their memory, they actually could go to school. Trevor worked with the military. He worked with the World Bank. He worked with the Asian Development Corporation. He worked with the Afghans themselves and the governor's staff, trying to bring together all of those threads to make that country, give that country the opportunity to rebuild itself, specifically community by community and then province by province. And that's what he was doing in the midst of that military deployment into Afghanistan in early 2006. On the 4th of March, tomorrow being the anniversary, and this today is Trevor's 16th anniversary is Live Day. And Trevor, we are glad to see you here and glad to see you alive and celebrate with you, if you will, that birthday. On the 4th of March, 2006, Trevor, along with others, was meeting.
No girls, you can go. Check. Do you still believe in fate? Yes, I do. I'm here. There was a point during COVID, I'm like, okay, do I still want to do this? And there was a period of time
I stopped because I'm picking up a lot of interference.
about 6 weeks. And I like how life is really easy. Life is really easy. And I had to be able to do some soul searching. And I want to be there still.
And in 2006, on the 4th of March, Trevor was with other Canadians and moved to an Afghan village, Sankin, met with Afghan elders to talk about exactly those kind of projects that I just mentioned, how to get potable water for their communities, because many of them did not have that. And so little girls in particular would have to walk 3, 4, 5 miles with a wheelbarrow, with water cans to get water to bring back home so their family could survive that day, to look at what they would need for schools. When they came together to sit down to meet with the Afghan elders in that village, he, with several of the others, took their helmets on, very common thing to do, protection against enemies until you leave, even if you may be an enemy yourself. It's called, or a Taliban assaulted Trevor and attacked him with an axe and cut down through his head. That young Afghan Taliban was immediately shot at by several soldiers, including Kevin Schmallen, who Annalise, his wife, is on with us here tonight. And they killed him and took him out of the action. Trevor was medevaced on a U.S. aircraft to get him into the Roll 3 hospital in Kandahar as quickly as possible. The medic on the way in cleared his air pipes and got him breathing, kept him breathing, got him to the Roll 3, where the incredible experts in that Roll 3 hospital, many of them Canadian, because the Roll 3 at that time was led by Canada, were Canadian surgeons and professionals, not all of the military, but those who wanted to go and serve, who kept him alive, did all the necessary things to keep his brain from swelling against his skull, and therefore getting horribly damaged, even more so than it already was. Arranged several days later an evacuation, both to Ramstein Air Base and then onwards to Landstuhl Medical Center in Germany, which is a United States Army medical center. And I will say, having been in Landstuhl many times, visiting our wounded soldiers, they cared for our soldiers, including Trevor, just as if they were their own soldiers. It was absolutely incredible, the care they gave him. They looked after him and eventually then evacuated him. The Canadians evacuated him from there back to Canada, back into British Columbia, where he was continued to be supported and treated for the incredible injuries that they had taken, the wound that he had taken when the hacks bit deeply down into his skull. I went to see Trevor in early 2007. And I had not gotten out there before that. I knew what had occurred. I knew where he was. I knew the treatment in general that he was undergoing. And before I went, I was out in Western Canada. I had a talk with the medical authorities. And we were just over a year after the assault and after his wounding. And the doctors told me their opinion was, these were the specialists, that after 1 year, if you had not improved, then you were not going to improve. And that their opinion and their recommendation was that this good man in front of us here was going to live much of his life in that almost vegetative state in which he presently was, because after 1 year, they had seen no improvement that was of any drama whatsoever. When I arrived and went to see him, I expected to see this guy in that almost vegetative state. Well, what I saw was a guy who was incredibly awake, who was incredibly alert, who talked to me with the quietest of whispers. And I do remember one point where I think I had my left ear, which is my good one, down to about 2 inches from Trevor's lips, trying to make sure that I could hear his words. And in fact, I did. But what I also saw there, and this is why tonight's is even different, tonight's Shots with Soldiers is even different, because we're actually going to toast two people. What I also saw there then was Debbie Lepore, Trevor's fiance, Trevor's girlfriend, Trevor's fiance, and the love of his life. And here was a woman with no reverse on her. She would not accept that the treatment that Trevor would receive would be based on the fact that he was going to live in a vegetative state forevermore. And she twisted my arm figuratively up behind my back and in my shoulder blades till I cried in pain. And we pushed the medical system to make sure that we could get this incredible individual all the treatment that he needed to advance as rapidly as he could, to live life fully, and to be part of a family with Debbie and his daughter at the time, Grace, and just simply keep going. They moved to Alberta, where the rehabilitation center was, and eventually into their home there. And because of the strength of Debbie, and because of the incredible strength of Trevor Green, he progressed to the point where he walked across the stage, yes, assisted, to receive that honorary degree. He became the honorary patron of Homes for Heroes, along with Al DiGenova, who is an incredible Canadian out in Vancouver, building homes that people who come to the Vancouver area to receive medical treatment, either military veterans or first responders and their families, have a place to stay. He and Debbie were married. They've had their second child, a son, Noah, and he's carried on a family life and continued to improve each day. He and Debbie wrote a book about their experiences, and I would just commend it to everybody who listens to this or watches this tonight or in the days to come. Go and look up Trevor and Debbie Green and find their book and read it, because it is inspirational. I would tell you that I love Trevor Green from the start. If possible, I love his wife, Debbie, even more, because every person needs a partner like her. And I said earlier on here, you know, I love Debbie because she's so strong. My wife loves Trevor because he's so strong. And I couldn't think of two finer Canadians who have represented our country so well, who have served our country so well, and who have inspired every single one of us because of their service to Canada in uniform, during their service to Canada in uniform, and continue to do so long after that initial service is completed. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to stop right there. And when you're ready and come back on screen, I'm going to ask you to raise a glass, and I'm going to toast both Trevor Green and his incredible partner, Debbie, for the awesome Canadians they are and the way they continue to inspire me, and I know thousands and tens of thousands of other Canadians right across this great land. Here's to Trevor Green and Debbie Green, awesome Canadians. God bless. Now I'm going to stop there. I asked if anybody's got any questions that we would like to respond to, that you'd like to ask or respond to, and that includes questions for Trevor. Everybody's silent. I understand that.
I have a question for Trevor. How do you keep hope through that kind of recovery?
You're on mute, Trevor. I'm going to tell you.
I have hope partly because my kids, and partly because the doctors, who, as the general said, wrote me off from the get-go. And I want to just prove them wrong in the mightiest way. But mainly my kids, because I never got to coach my daughter's teams, which I was looking forward to immensely. And I'd like to be more a part of my son's activities. Yeah. And I like to be more want to be more for Debbie. Yeah. My family, basically, inspires me and leads me on.
Trevor, we should all be so fortunate.
Great
Yeah,
answer.
Family,
Thank you.
so to have a family so powerful, so supportive, so incredible. And I don't know, if, you know, his daughter is Grace. Their daughter is Grace. She's now 17, right?
Yeah.
17 years. And if I got it right, 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
Right? And their son is Noah. How old is Noah?
9.
9 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful family. And my goodness, we should all be so fortunate.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mick. Thanks, Trevor. Any other questions?
I should add, General, it wouldn't be alive if there wasn't incredible people in just the right place at the right time. Rob Dolson wasn't usually in on the Shuras, but he was on my left flank that day. And he fought off crushing stress to get the shot in that killed my attacker, just as he was raising his axe for another bite. And when he got to roll 3, the American medevac crew wasn't going to take me because they didn't think I would survive. But a nurse named Maria Streppa put the boot to them and convinced them to take me. And then at Landstuhl, Dr. Pete Serini was there, who was a leading neurosurgeon in the States and a reserve member. And he kept me alive against all the odds.
Trevor, I should have mentioned Rob's name right at the front end because I'm well aware of the story and what he did that day and helped you. It's not the first time I've heard of and Saul, I went to the roll 3 for extended period every time I went into Afghanistan, not the first time. I've been aware of their incredible dedication to keeping people alive. In fact, you know, I think they told me their goal and their aim was, and they didn't meet it 100% because it wasn't possible, but if the medivacs would get a soldier like you to them alive, they would keep you alive. And they worked their damnedest to make sure that occurred. And likewise, and I said this earlier, but when I went to Landstuhl, you know, this is the United States Army running Landstuhl, which is a massive medical center with literally thousands of wounded and casualties coming in every single day. And the care was exceptional, absolutely exceptional. We went back and awarded Landstuhl Medical Center, in part because of the treatment that you received there, Trevor. We awarded them the Canadian Forces Unit Commendation for their exemplary conduct, their exemplary work and service to Canada and Canadians just like you.
Nice.
A little aside, if I could tell a story about Landstuhl Medical Center, because Trevor was there and I visited many other soldiers there. We had a lot of celebrities go to Landstuhl Medical Center from the United States of America, right? We didn't have any from Canada go. We had a lot from the United States of America. And when they went, almost invariably, not all, but almost invariably, they went with a complete posse. Cameras, still cameras, publicists, right? And all those kinds of things to make sure that their service, their support to soldiers was well documented on film and video to be shown on their Facebook sites and to be shown to, if you will, in many ways to bolster their own image. There was a lady that showed up that not many people would think much about from egotism, etc. And it was Cher. She showed up one time when I was there to come to visit our soldiers.
Nice.
And she came by herself. She got out of the car. There were no publicists, no aides, no cameras. She asked no video to be taken, no pictures to be taken. And she visited, I'm sure, 100 soldiers that day.
Nice.
And she sat and read stories to people, to men and women who were unconscious. And she sat with them for, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, read a read a part of a book, a story out of a book to them, and just, I think in my view, was absolutely incredible. And that's not the image that you get from her. I just thought I'd share that with you.
That is
Go-
amazing. My daughter Grace learned to walk in Landstuhl, up
Oh,
and
my
down the
Lord.
borders.
How special is that, man?
Yeah, yeah.
How special is that, huh?
I hope to visit there someday.
Yes,
Yeah.
you do. Yes, you do. You have to take her back there someday and let
Mhm.
her see where she learned to walk. Any other comments or questions for Trevor or myself?
I actually have one. I was trying to see from that incident. I read your op-ed in the Huffington Post. I haven't had a chance to read your book, which now with the general's endorsement,
Order.
I'm gonna have to order it and read it. But I was wondering, did anybody get awarded any medals from that day? I couldn't seem to find anybody.
I'm unclear whether anybody got a medal from that specific incident. But we were awarded the Governor General's Unit Accommodation Award. But that's the only award I know we got.
Yeah, so the unit received the Governor General's commendation. And Trevor was one of the first group of Canadian veterans serving or past service who received the Sacrifice Medal. You were one of the first group to receive it from the Governor General of Canada when we brought in and instituted the Sacrifice Medal for being wounded in the presence of the enemy, obviously.
Yeah.
And you know something, Bruce, that's a great question. I can see your mind racing. No, we can't add it into valor in the presence of the enemy yet. but there's a thought process of where somebody should look for something that perhaps wasn't as appropriately done. Anything else?
Just
General,
a
if I
quick
could-
comment. I just wanted to say it's a real honor to get to hear from you, Trevor, and you're a huge inspiration. Just everything you've done, I think you've affected people's lives positively in a manner of resilience, true Canadian professionalism for soldierism, and everything you continue to do. So keep doing what you do, and I look forward to reading your book. Thanks for everything you've done.
What's your name, brother?
Corey Hatt from Mad Hatter Industries, Lieutenant Hatt.
Okay. Thanks,
Thank you.
Corey.
Thank you, Corey. Anything else there, ladies and gentlemen? If
General
not,
Hillier,
sir, Michael.
if I may, Captain Green, your stories and the stories of Jody Middick keep me going.
Thank you, Michael.
I'm glad.
For those that don't know, Michael and I soldiered together long ago.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael. It's great.
Thank
to
you,
be
Captain.
inspiration.
I did time in Martello myself,
Yeah.
and then I went
Oh.
out to the Panjway to Spearwingar.
What year?
Was that 06, 07?
Yeah. Yeah. I missed that go. I was wounded in March. So I missed all that.
Yeah.
So
Unfortunately.
Trevor, you're going to celebrate, or you have celebrated today, that 16th anniversary. Are you going to celebrate it tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow. My buddy, my rugby buddy has a craft brewery and he makes an IPA called Orion 11, which is a platoon call sign. And I'm going to his brew pub tomorrow to celebrate my Sweet 16 Life Day. Yeah.
Sweet 16.
Yeah, well, you're going to enjoy that. And I hope you're with a whole bunch of people who love you as much as we do and who respect you as much as we do and who recognize just what an incredible Canadian you and Debbie and Grace and Noah are. And we hope that you celebrate tomorrow, because we will too. We'll all raise another glass to toast you tomorrow. Thank you, Trevor. And thank you, Bruce. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here tonight.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Bruce. Awesome, Trevor.
Thanks.
Annalise, my best to Kevin. Okay, when you get him back in, tell him he should have been here. just consider
I
himself
will.
AWOL until I get a chance to talk to him again.
Okay.
Sir, I was wondering if you could also give a little bit of a breakdown on the Valor situation for our listeners.
I think perhaps Bruce, you could probably even do it better, but I'll try. So look, we've been, as I mentioned earlier on, we've been trying to build momentum. We were going to do a press conference to really sort of coalesce all the different things that are being done, to really tell the story so that as many Canadians as possible would hear it. And we wanted to do that on the 17th of February, but as you know, we were kind of, and we felt the move was right to postpone from 17th February because the convoy had moved into Ottawa, the Emergency Measures Act was being invoked, and of course Russia was threatening and then invaded the Ukraine, and we're in the middle of a global upset. And we felt if we did the press conference then to get that momentum would be self-defeating, so we deferred it for a while yet. We've had the petition go into the House of Commons. As Bruce had said earlier, for those who weren't there, more than 14,000 signatures on that petition. We've written to the Governor General back in the fall and asked her to actually simply do something to cause a review of the situation. And we are now writing to her a second time. I'm going to say that it'll be equivalent of a third time, because if I say it, that's what will be. We're writing to her a second time to actually ask for some action. We have not received a formal response from Read All to the first letter. And in the interim, we continue to build momentum. If you get a chance, go online and view the story from Ottawa Life magazine, who just wrote on Jess and Valor in the presence of the enemy. Really, really good story. The Legion just came out with a second story. Bruce is holding it up right there. It's a really good read, that story, and just kind of actually puts it really, really well, better than any of us, or better than I could, any way, shape, or form. The Legion just came out with its second story on Jess LaRochelle and Valor in the presence of the enemy. And what we have said to every person that we can have contact with, whether it's the Governor General in our letter, or whether it's a petition in Parliament, or whether it's to the Minister of Defense or the Speaker of the House or the Chief of Defense Staff, is, you know something, why don't we relook this? It's good for Canada. It would be doing right to have a relook of it, put in place an independent committee, give them their marching orders and let them go and review it. And if it should come out, if that was occurring, we had an independent committee and reviewed it and came back and said, no, we don't think it's right to change it upwards, as good as it is, then okay, I'd be disappointed, but that still would be a satisfactory outcome from the point of view of we've at least got a relook, because we think that the information that's out there now is more fulsome, more comprehensive than what we knew at the time way back in 2006. So that is what we've asked. We've also said in Valor in the presence of the enemy that not only is it just LaRochelle, although from our perspective, that's the camel's nose underneath the tent. All of our allies, to one extent or another, have looked at their past and said, did we get it as right as possible? And is there something that occurred that shouldn't have occurred, or didn't occur and should have? And we could write it right now. So I'll give you examples of the United States military forces, the Department of National Defense. I think they have awarded 18 medals of honor for service in past years to Filipino Americans and Black Americans, because if they had been a white man back in the day, then quite probably they would have been wearing the Medal of Honor around their neck then. You know, people said to me, oh my goodness, our allies want to stay with what King George V put in place way back in, I don't know, 1912 or something, which said that there's 5 years from the time of the event to when you can be nominated for that VC. And obviously we've long passed that for everything. And my point would simply be is that we've changed everything else in our society. King George V is not our king. We're an independent country. The VC is Canada's VC. We can do whatever we want. Australia just went out and asked the Queen to present a Victoria Cross, or asked the Queen to award a Victoria Cross to a sailor who was 18 years old at the time in 1942, April of 1942, who went down fighting his ship and saving his buddies. And so if they can do it, if the United States of America can do it, if other countries with which we work very closely can take that kind of honest look at their past and say, truly, it was not correct, it was not good, it was not right for the country, it was not right for the individuals, then we could also. And I give you examples of Private Francis Pagamagabo, the incredible sniper from World War I, who was gassed in the April 1915 attacks up in the salient in Ypres, and who fought through the rest of the war, who killed 376 of the enemy, captured more than 300 others because of the gassing. He fought in every major battle that the Canadian Corps fought. And because of the gassing, he spent the rest of his life sleeping, sitting up. He died, I think, in 1953, having come back from the war, suffering from the impact of that gas burn, the post-traumatic stress that went with it. And yet he had done his service to Canada. And his first battle had been to fight to join the army to serve Canada, because we didn't recognize the Indigenous people at that time as full citizens. And he had to fight to join the military, to join the army, just to go to war to fight for Canada. How incredible. Is it not worth a look, for example, at his father, Sergeant Tommy Prince, who in World War II was part of the Special Service Force, and whose exploits, whose valor in the presence of the enemy are legendary. And almost one out of any 2 or 3 events, Sergeant Tommy Prince events, almost any one of those, to me, would have seemed like a Victoria Cross worthy event itself. And he did not receive the Victoria Cross. And so what we have said, Jess La Rochelle's file, it's recent. There's recent information which changes the construct of it, worthy of a review. It would be good for Canada, it would be good for the individual, it would be good for the Canadian forces, and good for our future. But that's just the first. We should put in place that independent committee to review Jess's file to start with, and then others going back to, let's say, World War I. But let the independent committee decide how much of that would be right and appropriate. And so there's where we are. We've gotten endorsements from, I think Bruce said earlier on, 105 different entities. And that's the Royal Canadian Legion, the City of North Bay, the City of Ottawa, the regimental associations, True Patriot Love, and on and on and on. I'm not sure, like Wounded Warriors Canada, but others also, Wounded Warriors Canada, but others also, 105 endorsements from organizations like that who are very much engaged with and represent our veterans and us and soldiers and their families across our great nation, and try to do the right thing. And they believe this is right to do. And the challenge is, we have a lethargic approach to it from the government of Canada. Nobody seems to want to take control and say, let's do a review. And that's why we're going to write the Governor General and send her a letter the second time and say, please, we wrote you the first time. Here's what transpired since then. Here's Jess's own story. And would you please take some action and direct a review of Jess La Rochelle with an independent committee in the Honors and Awards Chancellery of Canada, which she heads, and then look at the other aspects of it back to perhaps World War I. I think there's where we are right now on valor in the presence of the enemy. As soon as we feel the moment is right, goodness knows when that will be with the war in Ukraine and all that is going on. But as soon as we feel that's right, the right moment, we'll progress again and get to that news conference, get the story back in the headlines a bit more than it is right now, and do that, and hopefully drive towards that successful independent committee that will review it and do what's right in point of fact. Excuse me. As a follow-on to that, one of the things that we're Mick Zowski is here, and Gordon Anderson and myself and Kevin Reed, I think I saw his name up there a moment ago, is up there, and Giselle and Bruce and myself. What we want to do is to be able to put together episodes that tell the stories of those incredible Canadians, starting with Jess La Rochelle, but then maybe telling the stories of the next 9 Star of Military Valor winners who won the Star of Military Valor in Afghanistan and their incredible deeds, and be able to tell that in an episode, whether it's 30 minutes or 2 hours. Those are all variables that will resolve, but tell their stories to actually inspire Canadians, to have pride in their country, to serve their country, and to support those who serve in a way that's incredible, and to inspire Canadians with the thought that we believe, those who serve in uniform and those who support them as their families, that we believe our country is worth fighting for, and if necessary, putting your life on the line so that you may die or be horribly wounded, as Trevor Green was. So there's where we are. with valor in the presence of the enemy. Any points or questions that you can ask of me?
Thank you, sir. I just have one quick question. It's James Anger up here. They're currently asking, I don't know if you addressed this earlier or not, the Ukraine is asking for people to volunteer to go there from out of the Ukraine, like any country in the world. What are your thoughts on people doing that who are trained, ex-military, and also people who aren't?
Well, first of all, if anybody was going to do that in Canada, my recommendation would be make sure you understand what it is you'd be getting into. But secondly, make sure you understand the laws of Canada and what we as a country permit our citizens to do. Because what you would not want to do if somebody, a man or a woman, were really interested and dedicated to supporting the Ukraine by going there and fighting the Russians, which would be, in my view, a noble thing to do. What you wouldn't want to do is commit a crime based on Canadian law. I do not know the law. And so that would be point number 2, equal to point number 1. Make sure you know what you're getting into. And secondly, make sure that you know what Canadian law is, because there'd be nothing worse than going there, helping the Ukraine to survive, helping put an end to this nightmare that Putin has started, and then coming back to Canada and being met at the border with a bunch of big guys and gals with handcuffs and thrown in the jail. So those are the 2 things I talked about. Last thing I'd say on this kind of stuff, they don't want people who don't have military experience. It's going to be painful. It's going to be frightening, and you need tactical skill sets. The fighting is going to be in the cities. It's going to be brutal here. What's going to happen this next days and weeks? Putin cannot lose. If he loses, he's gone. Somebody's going to knock him off, or something's going to happen, or he's going to have an insurrection in Russia, no matter how brutal they are in their repressions. And so he's going to go all in over this next 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. Urban combat is where it's going to be, because the countryside is going to be largely owned by the Russians. I know we've heard all about that convoy north of Kyiv, and that's perhaps the exception. And the fighting is going to be inside of those urban areas. And for those of soldiers, you know that military operations in urban terrain are fighting in built-up areas or city fighting. That's the toughest, most difficult, most skillful fighting that exists. And you need soldiers who are already trained and have some experience to go into those kind of environments and have any opportunity to succeed in them to support. I know that President Zelensky had asked for an international, said, hey, we're going to establish an international brigade. We'd love to have volunteers. There's a long history of that, right? We know that. There's the International Brigade in the Spanish Civil War in the mid-late 30s. We had tens of thousands of Americans come to Canada and England, of course, and join the Canadian Army and the Canadian Air Force for World War II and go fight. We had the American Volunteer group go to China with General Claire Chennault and fly the P-40s, the Flying Tigers, and did that under Chinese auspices, so to speak. And we had, what, 20,000 Canadians go and fight with the United States Army in Vietnam. So there's a long history of all of this occurring. Know what you're getting into, know what the rules are for our country and what the laws are, and make sure you don't put yourself in a wrong corner if that's what your intent is to do. And then lastly, it'd be people with military experience that are needed, not civilians for the most part, unless you could support in the non-combat roles, medical specifically.
Okay,
Anything
sir.
else?
I think that's going to wrap us up.
Perfect. Thank you, folks. Thank you very much, Trevor. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, good to see you, man. Good night.
See you.